Hello and welcome back to Filmmaking Giants. If Jean Renoir taught us to keep rooms open to their surprises, Orson Welles taught us how to fill those rooms with time. Past folded into present, truth braided with performance, authority speaking from the floor and the ceiling at once. His talent appeared so early and so loudly that legend keeps drowning out craft. Let's make the opposite move. Put the myths under the light and return to the bench, where he and his collaborators, Greg Toland with glass and chemistry, Robert Wise with scissors, Bernard Herrmann with strings and brass, a company of actors honed on radio, built a cinema that could stage a life as a labyrinth and still guide you through. The origin story is already sound. A boy adored and endangered by praise, a father who drifted, a mother who disciplined talent into art, a voice that sounded older than its owner, a jaw that photographed well at 25 and kept steely shots at 60. But the craft base is not childhood, it is radio. The Mercury Theater on the air trained Welles to narrate with architecture. In radio, you must build space with sound, or listeners will fall through the floor. He learned to place a voice at a distance, to add reverb as if a wall were present, to overlap dialogue so it sounds like life, not turns. He learned how to stage a lie, War of the Worlds interrupting itself with bulletins, and feed it just enough verisimilitude for a nervous listener to believe. That apprenticeship was not a prank. It was an education in how attention moves through fear, how authority sounds, how doubt can be made. When a camera became available, these habits followed. RKO gave him something it would soon regret, a contract with freedom inked into it. Welles did not arrive alone. He brought the Mercury players, the radio discipline, and a curiosity that refused to flatter Hollywood. Greg Toland, the cinematographer whose name should be soldered to Welles's in any honest account, asked to work with him because he wanted the liberty to experiment, that prestige productions pinch. Together they built Citizen Kane, less a debut than a landing party. The headline craft choices have been taught so often, they risk becoming slogans. Deep focus so sharp that a child playing in snow, a mother signing a paper, and a father fretting about the future can all command the same frame. Low-angle shots that reveal ceilings, i.e., reveal that rooms have pressure as well as floors. Newsreel pastiche that compresses a life into ridicule and sets up the detective structure the film then undermines. Non-linear storytelling that trusts a viewer to assemble fragments without fear. Rosebud has been asked to bear more meaning than any syllable deserves. What matters as craft is the device that contains it, a life recalled by unreliable narrators, each with their lamp turned at a different angle. Welles turns exposition into a kaleidoscope. A newsreel barks, a banker remembers, a friend is bitter, an ex-wife is tired, an employee cries, a guardian explains too much. The camera honors none of these voices as absolute. It honors the room, pulls back far enough that you can see how the teller has arranged their story, and it refuses to console you with a last-minute master key. The sled is less a revelation than an obituary for plot fetish. The film's real secret is not a toy. It is the insistence that a person cannot be reduced to any one account. The famous deep focus is not a fetish either. It is a moral device. In the boarding house scene, the child indexes the snow, while the adults sell his future, front, middle, back, all alive. Your eye moves by choice, not by coercion. That freedom to look is not neutrality. It is a wager that thinking, like seeing, benefits from access. Toland's lenses, plates, lights, and emulsion tricks make this possible. Welles's staging makes it necessary. The actors in each plane carry the scene's weight simultaneously. Editing could have done the job, but the unbroken image lets you discover the job yourself. Sound does as much. Listen to ceilings, not only to lines. Rooms are tall in Kane. Voices bounce off them. Herrmann's score enters and exits like weather, pushing and retreating. Overlapping dialogue was commonplace on radio. In film, it had been pruned for clarity. Welles brings it back, not to confuse, but to densify. Human speech seldom waits its turn. Truth seldom gets to be alone in a frame. A Welles scene knows this and stages accordingly. You do not need to catch every syllable. You need to catch the pressures. Who interrupts whom? Who keeps talking through someone else? who finishes sentences that do not belong to them. The toolbox works even more plainly in The Magnificent Ambersons, the film that proves Welles was not a one-time conjurer. A Midwestern dynasty meets industry and loses its mirrors. Toland was not there. Stanley Cortez shot, and the depth remains. The ballroom sequence frames vanity as architecture. A gossip's anecdote wafts like perfume and hardens into a verdict, because the social space allows and rewards such hardening. Here you can glimpse the Welles who might have grown if studios had let him, the anthropologist of arrogance. The studio's scissors prevented the public from seeing that man whole. The recut turns a sorrow into a tidy lesson. It remains a priceless education in how to mourn and edit. You can still read the buried film through the seams. Welles loved angles that put the camera below the chin, so that power must be carried by a neck rather than faked by a pronouncement. He loved pushing a lens close enough to make a human face unflatteringly honest, and then stepping back to let the person recover. He loved sets that didn't quite fit, because misfit makes bodies act. The boarded-up skylight in Kane, the unfinished hall in Othello, the cheap hotel in The Lady from Shanghai. These are spaces that, like Renoir's doors, tell the truth before a line is said. Welles's difference lies in his pleasure in that truth. He is a magician who shows you the trapdoor and asks you to enjoy the trick anyway, because what matters is not that deception occurs, but what it is used to reveal. It's All True, the doomed South American project, and Journey into Fear, a Mercury product that slipped from his hands, mark a hinge. He left RKO younger than most men who have exercised that much freedom. From there, he became a pirate, raising money from habit, not from angels, recording when there was film, acting in order to eat and to buy stock, cutting at night, trading favors, loving craft more than dignity. If the sentence sounds romantic, do not forget the cost. Friends cooling, studios condescending, projects stranded. His answer was not bitterness, it was work. Macbeth and Othello are resourcefulness turned into poetry. You can see the budget in the walls and in the pauses between shoots. You can see the man's joy in sound, accents chewed like bread, syllables thrown like stones. The cutting of Othello is a rescue operation. He matches shots across cities and seasons until you forget that logistics rather than plan dictated the seam. The lesson is not compromise, it is priority. What matters is that jealousy, once it finds a host, creates a weather system. The rest is scaffolding. Then, Touch of Evil, a confession of the border as a state of mind. The opening shot is a manifesto of continuous suspense. A bomb placed, a car moving, a couple walking, a street band, an intersection, a patrol, a kiss, a crossing. The camera riding anxiety like a tide, and then breaking it on an explosion timed to smash romance. It is not the length of the shot that matters, though length impresses. It is the grammar, how Welles uses the camera to remember a threat while the characters forget. The film, recut in release and later partially restored, is a handbook of rot. Charlton Heston as Vargas is upright and brittle. Welles as Quinlan is gluttonous and wounded. Janet Leigh is intelligence punished. The low angles and bad rooms accuse without editorializing. The sound, separate radios, competing bands, voices that don't belong together, turns the town into a cacophony of motives. The exiles deepen. The trial, shot in Europe, fueled by Kafka, turns bureaucracy into sets that hate you. Welles builds a world of corridors too long, staircases that end nowhere, offices that swarm with stamped pages and silent men whose shoes squeak. He understands that modern terror is not the knock at midnight. It is a letter delivered at noon with the wrong salutation. Anthony Perkins puffs and blinks. The camera circles like a question that cannot be answered. The film ends, properly, without catharsis. Then, chimes at midnight, the film Welles loved most among his own, because it made visible the friendship that had lived in his body since youth. Falstaff is a self-portrait, not because of appetite alone, but because Falstaff is performance made kind, a liar whose lies are attempts at hospitality. The Battle of Shrewsbury is a lesson every action director should study. Welles shoots mud and weight. He avoids glamour. He quotes Eisenstein, but refuses choreography that looks like ballet. Armor makes men stupid. Swords don't sing. They dent. The action edits by impact, not by coverage. The kingship that follows is filmed like a funeral of a language. At the end of the road, though Welles never conceded the end. F for fake, which might be the most honest film ever made about deception. The essay form suits him like a mirror that has learned to talk. He interlaces Elmire de Hory's forgeries, Clifford Irving's forgery of a biography, Howard Hughes's cultivated illegibility, his own magic, and Oja Kodar's body and mind into an argument that truth and trickery are neighbors, and that art is a kind of licensed forgery in the service of insight. He declares a rule: the next hour will contain only truth, and then toys with your assumptions about what that rule contains. The cutting is musical, the voiceover is chuckling and grave. The film ends by returning you to responsibility. If you want to know what is true, you must work. No apparatus will save you. What's in the kit that you can use tomorrow? Start with low angles as ethics. They are not macho. They bring the world down on the character, revealing ceilings. Revealing, that is, the pressure a room exerts. In meetings, where you sit decides who has a ceiling. Welles puts himself and his people under roofs to prove that authority is weight. Shoot up when you want to feel that weight. Shoot level when fairness is your subject. Take deep focus as a contract. When you keep planes alive, you trust the audience. You also give yourself the freedom to write meaning across distance. A child and a contract in the same shot is an argument no intertitle can surpass. In nonfiction, this translates to transparency. Show the data and the face that reads it. Let the viewer edit with you inside the frame. Keep overlap as truth. In life, we interrupt. In organizations, power interrupts more. Stage that. Let one voice trample another when trample is the point. Pull back when respect is. Welles's radio ear makes his films unsentimental about conversation. You can adopt the same in sound design and in prose. Let sentences bump when the world is crowded. Learn resourcefulness from his patched-together productions. The lesson is not to glorify struggle. It is to recognize that constraint is a form of focus. Othello asks, if time and money will not hold still, what can? Answer: direction of gaze, the negative space of a face, the rhythm of pursuit. A fraction of your plan executed with belief will outlast the outline of a perfect film never shot. Finally, try essay as cinema. F for fake proves that a well-arranged mind on screen can be as dramatic as a chase. The form, quotation, confession, proof, reversal, lends itself to any field where persuasion matters. Welles invites you to lay your own hands bare, to admit the cuts, to show the seams, and then to argue harder. In a culture allergic to process, that invitation is an ethical act. We should talk about responsibility because Welles forces it. He loved control and despised cruelty. He asked for freedom and burned it like fuel. He demanded collaboration and sometimes exhausted collaborators. He told the truth about lies and lied about truths in the service of what he believed were larger truths. The films do not excuse him. They model a reckoning. The form itself keeps telling you what you are being asked to believe and why. When the newsreel in Kane ends and the film begins, you feel the difference between announcement and inquiry. Spend your career lengthening the time your work spends in inquiry. What happens when we place him back alongside Renoir? You see that deep focus is not one thing. In Renoir, it is fairness. In Welles, it is judgment postponed. In Renoir, the camera moves to accommodate. In Welles, it advances like a proposition. In Renoir, doors open and close with manners. In Welles, ceilings descend. Neither approach is the grammar. Together they widen what the camera can mean when it decides not to cut. The last years gave him piecemeal joy, talk shows and dinners, TV appearances where the raconteur out-talked the director, because the world is kinder to men who flatter our wish to be amused. He died at his desk in 1985, with pages under his hand and ambitions in the ashtray. The Other Side of the Wind surfaced decades later, a relic and a provocation, Welles still warning that we are about to confuse life with its images, and that only form, refusal to be lazy in arranging, can save us from boredom masquerading as art. He leaves us tasks, all practical. Arrange sound like a room, stage rooms like arguments. Let the camera carry time like memory does. out of order but not at random. Treat your audience as accomplices, not targets. Show the magic and then show the trapdoor. Enjoy authority when it is earned and mock it when it is puffed. Forgive appetite until it harms someone and then judge. Above all, keep cutting until the sequence does not lie. Thank you for listening to this episode of Filmmaking Giants, produced by Selenius Media, music by The Artificial Laboratory.